Good morning. I'm still reporting on whether those $35 per hour rioters will show up at the Trump inauguration. The forces of disruption and anarchy are preparing for a so-called massive demonstration on January 20th to try to disrupt Donald Trump's inauguration. Check this out. Yup, wear black and disrupt. That's their motto. Be sure to wear thermal underwear because January 20th is typically the coldest day of the year in Washington, and the National Mall is a big wide open space through which the cold wind off the Potomac pours. And you're going to have to walk a long way to find a place to get warm. Now, if you are arrested, which is quite possible, at least you'll be out of the cold. But then your future earning power will be significantly reduced for the rest of your life. Of course, you won't realize this for another 20 years. This quote from the first paragraph of this webpage. It must be made clear to the whole world that the vast majority of people in the United States do not support his presidency or consent to his rule. If that was true, then you certainly wouldn't have to be paying protesters $35 per hour to be there, now would you? You wouldn't have to be bussing in those protesters either, now would you? The D.C. metro area is filled with willing protesters for just about any cause. But they are also smart enough to know not to come down to the mall on January 20th unless you really have a need to be uncomfortable. I was on the mall for the big anti-Vietnam War protests of the early 1970s. No one had to be paid. Most of us were not particularly anti-war either. It was just a big happening on the mall and everybody wanted to go check it out. Well, over 1 million people showed up. I pushed my way to the front just because even then I was interested in what makes things tick. But when I got to the front, I was astonished to find that there were only a couple of hundred SDS violence-prone radicals throwing rocks and bottles at a slow-moving wedge of a couple of hundred cops coming down Constitution Avenue. That's when I learned the word agent provocateur, people trying to bring about a major riot by provoking a violent reaction from the police. Well, that didn't work, but for most of us that was our first taste of tear gas. The vast majority of the crowd was just there to listen to a star-studded group of acts, from Janis Joplin to a rumored appearance by Jimi Hendrix. We would have paid to be there. Certainly no one had to pay us. Call it apathy or call it common sense with a dash of anti-war sentiment, because most of us were facing the draft back then. Flash forward to today. I live quietly surrounded by Democrats. The lifespan of my Trump signs were measured in days, not weeks. But will my Democrat neighbors take to the streets now? No way. They accept the American tradition of peaceful transition of power. Their attitude is, our woman lost, so we'll see how Trump does. He probably won't be so bad. To my international audience, don't believe what you see on TV. In my travels since the election, which were significant last week, I have seen exactly 0 protesters anywhere. Most people are excited by the prospect of Trump. They see Trump as a changed president who will finally drain the corruption swamp of lobbyists that now encircles Congress. And what about prosecuting those who are supplying the millions of dollars to fund these riots going on today? Well, Brother Obama is still in power, but this changes as of noon on Friday, January 20th. Thereafter, I expect several resignations at the Justice Department and the FBI, and then the indictments will begin to flow as the rule of law reinstates itself after a long absence in Washington. And the name of George Soros is near the top of that list of indictables, because paying for incitement to riot is a federal Class 3 felony. And guess what I learned on Saturday? That Soros is a naturalized U.S. citizen whose primary residence is in New York State. I'm still reporting from Washington. Good day.